Host at an Airbnb in New Orleans gives you a warning. Listen to it. We'll call her Kate. Kate was staying in town for a business meeting, so she said she was staying at this cute little Airbnb down around the French Quarter. She was alone. She didn't want to stay in hotels. She said she always kind of got the ick in hotels. She felt like they were more dangerous. So she goes to the Airbnb. She had the code to get in, and the host had left her a handwritten note that said, do whatever, just clean up after yourself. But then it also said, do not open the door after midnight for anyone. She thought that they were just trying to be funny because, of the nightlife that's down there. So she kind of didn't pay any mind to it. The first night, everything was fine. The second night at 12:45, she hears a knock at the door, just 3 little knocks. She said they weren't frantic or like loud or anything. They were just like polite, soft knocks. So she goes to the door, she looks through the peephole, and she sees this gorgeous guy standing there. She said he was like so good looking. He was pale skin. He had dark hair, the most gorgeous eyes she'd ever seen. He says, "Hey, I'm so sorry to bother you, but I left my phone in here the other day." She was kind of weirded out a little bit because she knew she hadn't had any guests, but she thought maybe it was whoever stayed there before her, but she hadn't seen or heard a phone. He tells her, "Hey, I can tell you where it's at. You can go get it for me. You don't even have to let me in." Then he mumbled something that she didn't really hear. She couldn't hear through the door. So without thinking, she just cracked the door a little bit. That's when he winked and said, "Thank you. That's all I needed." Then left. Now, personally, this is where Kate loses me because she said it didn't really scare her because he was so good looking. Girl, so was Ted Bundy. She goes, he's still dumb and thinking that it's something that the Airbnb does for the area or whatever. So she calls the host, and the host said, "Did you open the door?" And she said, "Yeah, for this guy, like I didn't let him in or anything. I just like cracked the door." And the Airbnb host just hangs up on her. I guess kind of like, "Girl, I already told you, like, don't open the door. You didn't listen, so you're on your own now." That night, she's in bed, she's by one of the windows, and she hears like 3 knocks on the window, right? And I'm like, oh my God. Like, as soon as I'm reading it, I'm like, duh, oh my God. So then she said she starts seeing like shadows move across the room. She swears she saw the guy looking through her window, but he never like did anything. He never came in, and she packed up all of her stuff and got the hell out of there the next morning. But she said still to this day, like she will randomly at the same time as that occurrence happened, she'll hear 3 soft knocks, but there'll be no one there. And I'm like, he's there, girl, he's there. Have you ever met a vampire? Because clearly that's what she just met.
Please, I don't have any time for any gossip now. Eh? Yes.
Look at you.
Do something with it.
It's just money coming to me easily. Money coming in and needing me. Money coming in repeatedly. Money coming, it's just money coming. It's just money coming to me frequently. Money coming in to be with me. Money coming in secretly. Money coming, it's just money coming. It's just money coming to me always. Money coming in all day. Money coming in all pay. Money coming, it's just money coming. It's just money coming to me frequently. Money coming in to be with me. Money coming in secretly. Money coming, it's just money coming. It's just money coming to me easily. Money coming in and needing me. Money coming in repeatedly. Money coming, it's just money coming. It's just
Storytime about another true vampire encounter in New Orleans. This happened on Fat Tuesday, and the story came from a girl named Ness and her sister Jen. Ness said I could tag her too, so she's going to be in the caption. It's Fat Tuesday. Ness and Jen are partying, raging, having a great time when they meet this light-skinned black man with these amazing green eyes. That's literally how she described him. She said his eyes were mesmerizing. She said eventually his attention drifted to her sister Jen, even though they were both kind of feeling him. This was an all-day event. They had been drinking all day, partying all day, bar hopping all day. So they're talking to him for a little while, and they decide they're going to change venue. They don't exchange contact information. They don't care, whatever. So they're going bar to bar, and a little while later they end up at this other bar, and they're standing in line to get in. When all of a sudden they see him again, she said they must have just not noticed him at first, but he was also in line to get in this bar. He's in line behind them, so they turn around, they start talking to him, and when it comes time for them to go in, he gestures for them to go in first. From that point on, they were like hanging out with him, so he was going bar to bar with them. Every time they went to a new bar, he would let them go in first. But before they would go into each bar, he would ask them, like, "Do you want me to come in too?" And she said Jen always answered the same way, which was, "Yeah, boo, come on in." So the 3 of them stay out late, like late, and the night is wearing down. All the people are starting to turn in for the night. Ness and her sister are like pretty wasted, so they're like, "We're gonna go back to our hotel." And he's like, "Do you want me to walk you back?" They're like, "Okay, we love a gentleman." So they let him walk them back to the hotel. When they get to the hotel, he takes Jen's hand in the middle of the street and starts slow dancing with her. She said they were in like a drunken haze, so it just added this other layer of like a he takes Jen's hand in the middle of the street and starts slow dancing with her. She said they were in like a drunken haze, so it just added this other layer of like a magical evening, and they didn't really think anything of it. But then he leans into her neck and he opens his mouth as if he's about to bite her. His teeth like barely graze her neck, and she jerks back and she's like, "I'm sorry, like I wasn't looking for anything. I was just having fun. Like I wasn't looking for anything like that." He's just staring at her, and she said he had this look of defeat on his face, but like there was another expression too, which they didn't know what it was. And maybe it was just the streetlights, but she says she swears his face shifted. And this is such a common theme in all of these stories, I'm realizing. And he says, may I come in? And Ned says that both of them just got a chill. Like they talked about it afterward. A chill ran through both of their bodies. So Jen snaps out of whatever trance she's in and she just says no, very firmly. Literally the moment that the word left her lips, he just turned and started walking down the street. No goodbye, nothing, after they had spent hours and hours together. So they turn to look at each other and they're like, that was weird. And they turn back and he's just gone. They scan the street, don't see any trace of him. Like he just vanished into thin air. So after she sent me the story, I emailed her back and I was like, can I just ask you how you came to the conclusion that he was a vampire, not just like a weirdo? And she was like, because he asked us so specifically if he could come in everywhere we were going. She said most people would have just gone bar to bar, like not needing permission to enter, but his hesitation was very apparent. Like it was a public party. He could have gone anywhere he wanted. He also...
So it has now come the time where I need to tell my story about vampires in New Orleans. I've been holding out on this because I didn't want nobody to think I was crazy, you know, and just to not have to deal with the judgment. But now it's time. But when I'm speaking about vampires, I'm not speaking about any person, thing, or entity that looks like this filter that I'm wearing now. That is a big misconception that people have. What's actually happening is it's more of an energy exchange. So these energy vampires, so to speak, they will specifically seek you out. They will watch you, monitor you, learn your likes and dislikes. They will know the places that you frequent. They will know your places of employment. So here's the thing. They actually have a method and a caste system, if you will, of how they decide to choose their next energy source. Basically, the less connected to God's source you are, whatever that God source looks like for you, the easier it is for them to leech your energy. But those people usually have a lower frequency of energy, so that's not usually what they're looking for. The higher your frequency is and the more connected you are spiritually to God's source, the more they want your energy. But it may be more difficult for them to get because most of the time these people have more discernment. When you're operating in a high frequency, they can literally see your light. Okay, here we go. So this is about 2018. I have a skincare salon inside of a voodoo shop. That's another story. Oh, we starting off crazy already. But anyway, so those of you from New Orleans, y'all know it was inside a New Orleans Healing Center. Okay. So I did skincare, facials, and all that. And I also did Reiki facials. That was something that I offered because I'm also a Reiki master. Now, at the same time, I was still working as a nurse. The reason why I bring up the skincare salon is because it's going to come back around. So when I meet the energy vampire. Okay, so I'm the director of nursing at this addiction treatment center, right? So sometimes I have to meet up with people, you know. So one day this weird looking man is on the floor and I'm like, how the hell he get on the floor? Because you couldn't just walk up on the floor. You had to have a code to get up there. So somebody brings him to me and he's like, yeah, I just wanted to leave, you know, my card and let you know we offer IOP services. That's like outpatient treatment. And just wanted to know if we can set up like a partnership or something in the future and do referrals when you discharge your patients. La da 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 da. I'm like, okay. So he gives me his card and information and leaves. And I'm thinking to myself, that's weird. Like, first of all, we have our own internal IOP program. But okay. So at that time, that job was horrible. I mean, it really sucked. I wanted out of it, like, right away. And then I was still trying to do my little skincare business on the side. So I was like, I need to quit this job. So it finally got to the point where I was able to quit because it was just too much for me. I had a breakdown. So some time goes by and I'm eventually like, okay, I need to find another little job, a little hustle in the meantime. So one day I'm looking, you know, on Indeed or one of those job sites, and I see an ad for a nurse for an addiction treatment center. And I was like, that seemed like something I could do. It's a low key. I don't have to be the director. I could just do my little shift and leave. And then what's interesting, it mentioned in the ad that they offered Reiki. I was like, oh shit, that's right up my alley. Something about the ad just didn't seem right or professional. I was like, I don't think this is a real job. But I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to just apply to it anyway and see what happens. Y'all, I turned in my resume, and I kid you not, the same day, this woman calls me back. And we set up an interview, and I think I interviewed like the next day. Y'all, so I Googled the address of the place, and I wish I could tell y'all the name of the street, but I can't because it's going to give it away. Louboutin. So it's the day of the interview. I walk into the clinic. There's like soothing music playing. It's, you know, giving spa-like ambiance. There are diffusers with essential oils going. I mean, it's just so nice and serene. And in my mind, I'm like, oh yeah, this is me right here. Baby, I'm about to fake it till I make it. I'm about to do good on this interview here. I needs to be up in here. So I'm greeted by one of the nurse managers, and she's real nice and easygoing, and she sits me in a room and gives me some paperwork to fill out, because you know I still gotta fill out the actual application and all that stuff. And she was like, all right, when you're done filling it out, just go turn in your paperwork to our administrative assistant across the hall over there. And I was like, okay, cool. So I finished my paperwork, get up and bring it to the office, and baby, the lady in the office is a sister, and I'm like, hey girl, me and you, we gonna be cool. Got this. You know, I got a little excited because I ain't seen none of us yet, but you know, I said, okay, she in here running a little something, so all right, we good. So she was like, okay, I'm gonna take you to come have a seat in the director's office. He's in a just getting out of a meeting, so just have a seat in his office and you'll do your interview shortly. I'm like, okay, cool. So she walked me to the office, and I'm sitting in the office, y'all, and I'm like, what the? So I'm sitting down in the office waiting for my interview, and a little small radar start going up, just a little bit, and I'm looking around at all the shit he got in his office. So I'm seeing shaman sticks, a big tall wall shelf with about 10 shelves with all kind of shit on there. They got old looking books that look like spell books and stuff. Very eclectic and, I don't know, eccentric looking things everywhere. I can't really replicate what I'm talking about, but it's kind of giving sort of like this, but like a little more dark. And this, and all these shaman sticks. I know what y'all thinking. I should have got my ass up out of there right then and there. So I had to rationalize what was happening. I was like, oh, it's just nothing. Maybe he's just, you know, he's just a little weird. Because I kind of think of myself as a little weird too. So, you know, maybe you're just into some kind of different stuff. I don't know. I'm just trying to get a job, baby. So I'm still looking around this office, looking at all this occult stuff, and nervously waiting, and then the door opens. Y'all, guess who it was? It was the same man that came up on the hospital unit where I used to work and left his card with me about the IOP program. He didn't mention it, and I never mentioned it, but I knew that he knew who I was, and of course I remembered who he was, but he never mentioned it. So I'm like, okay, he gonna act like he don't know me. Okay, let me just do this little interview. So that made like another little radar kind of go up a little bit, but I'm still like, all right, it ain't nothing. So we're not doing like regular interview questions. We're kind of like talking like we're friends or know each other, like we're getting to know each other or something. And so some kind of way we get to talking about my skincare business in my shop. No, let me back up. I'm lying. He was talking about some of the programs they have there and the social worker. And then he started talking about the social worker and saying, oh yeah, for some reason he shows me a picture of the social worker in his phone. And y'all, all I could look at was the picture she was standing in front of. The social worker was standing in front of a drawing, a painting that was directly in front of my shop. I was like, hold on. Because I hadn't told him about my shop yet. That's what I had wanted to mention. I hadn't told him anything. So when I saw that, y'all don't understand. Okay, so y'all understand. This is where my shop was, inside the New Orleans Healing Center. But anyway, this is the picture. So it's an artist's rendition of the goddess Kalima, the god Kalima. So this is literally when you walk out my door, this is what you see. And this one is right next to it. So it's like, that was crazy. Because there's a long hall to get to my shop, and there was nothing else there. So it was like, why would she even standing in front of it. I guess you wanted a picture in front of it, but in order to walk up to that picture, you had to be like going to some place down that hall, which the only place was my shop. So that's a quick picture of the inside of my shop. And this is me sitting underneath the pyramid. I had gotten really into Reiki and had even gotten certified. But I felt like he pointed that picture out to me because he wanted me to know that, look, we are where you are. I want you to know that we see you. That's what I felt like. My gut feeling was telling me that. That's when the radars really started going off and I started to feel a little uncomfortable. So as the interview is continuing, I'm saying in my mind, okay, I'm just tripping, you know? Like, you just need this job. Just stop tripping. Like, I'm not afraid of too many things. I done been around all kind of people who are into other things that I'm not into. And it don't bother me, you know, because I'm secure in myself, you know. So I'm like, you know, that was just a coincidence. I'm tripping. So he then goes on to introduce me to a few people. You know, he had like a counselor come in. I think he introduced me to a psychiatrist. You know, I went on a quick tour of the clinic. And then they were like, oh, we're getting ready to have a Reiki session. And I was like, oh, okay, this is up my alley. Okay, this is gonna lighten things up a little bit. They were like, I know you're done with the interview, but would you like to see, you know, how we do a Reiki session here? And I was like, sure, yeah. Y'all ain't gonna believe what happened next. So one of the workers takes me to the Reiki room. It's like a therapy room, right? So it's really calm and serene and spa-like. The lights are dim. There's a massage Reiki table with pillows and pretty throws. So I'm like, okay, this may not be so bad. So in the room, it's me, the director, the lady I talked to initially on the phone. It was the psychiatrist, a counselor, and it might have been a nurse in there too. So I'm looking around and I'm waiting for them to bring the patient in the room, and I'm like, I don't see no patient. What a patient. So they was like, oh no, why don't you try it yourself so you can see how we do it here. Now in the back of my mind, I'm saying, man, I need this job, right? But I'm also like, I don't know these people. But it was like, I was in a room full of people and it was like, I don't know, they had me they put me on the spot, you know? So it's like, I kind of was hesitant, but I let them do it. That was that discernment I had kind of trying to come through, but I was suppressing it. I was like, I'm tripping. They just gonna do a little Reiki. I do Reiki, you know? I just kept trying to rationalize everything, knowing in my gut, I was like, something ain't right with these people. So here we go. I'm on a table, y'all. I'm on the fucking table with all these strange people standing around me. I'm laying down and they're standing around me. So the lights are really low. They have like this, I don't know, this drum tribal music kind of playing in the back. And the lady who I spoke to on the phone, she's at the head of the table. And she has this like feather thing in her hand. It's like I don't know, it's a feather. And she like flapping the feather. So my eyes supposed to be closed, right? But I'm kind of like peeping every now and then. So my eyes are closed, but like I'm peeping on the slit. And then I'm like listening. I'm like, what the fuck? They making all these weird noises and sounds. I'm like, hold on, Reiki don't go like this. So I'm peeping. I'm looking at the psychiatrist, the doctor. He all into it with his hands stretched out. I'm like, okay. And then the director started making these crazy ass clucking noises like a chicken. I promise you, I can't make this shit up. It sounded like he was sneezing or I don't know what the hell he was doing, but in my mind, I was just looking at them and laughing at them like, really? They really think they doing something? Like, they have no idea. Like, they're not doing anything. But I gathered they was trying to invoke something, but something wasn't connected. So I'm still peeping at what they doing. They like, ooh, ooga, 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 doing all this shit. I can't tell you how long this went on for. I don't remember. Maybe like 20 to 30 minutes. I can't remember. Mind you, all this was on the same day of the interview. I hadn't even gotten a job offer yet. So in retrospect, when I think about this, today, they were trying to harness my energy, but something wasn't connecting right. I feel like maybe I was spiritually protected. Usually I have a way of discerning stuff, but I don't know. I wasn't in my normal state of mind because I had just left that job and it had drained me. And it was just a lot I had been going through. So I was vulnerable at that time. And I don't know. And I feel like it was not a coincidence that that same man had come up to my job and left me his car, and the social worker that worked at that same facility was standing right in front of my shop. That was just crazy to me. So that goes to show, I think there are energy vampires out there that prey on people who are vulnerable. So just be careful out there. But I really, really should have known better. I really should have. I just don't know what I was thinking. I think that was around 2018. And I have not worked like, a regular full-time job as a nurse in person since that time. I've been working remote from home since I left that place, because I prayed to never have to go back and work in those conditions again and be around those kind of people. So I kind of isolated to myself, and I've been working from home. I remember when COVID first hit, it wasn't too much of a transition for me because I was already working at home. I think that was my way of trying to protect myself. I don't know, but I like it. I ain't never going back. Not until I finish medical school, and then of course I'll go back, to the hospital, but I'm not going back. And I ain't never did Reiki again either. Nothing against Reiki. I love it. It's wonderful. But that is one of the things that they try to use to get your energy. So, if you're doing it, just be careful. But it's not to say Reiki is bad. I want to make that clear.
Y'all got another story time. Living in New Orleans, seeing witches, encountering witches and vampires. Lock in, y'all. Lock in, gang. There's a restaurant in New Orleans called, I want to say like For Your Child. I'm screwing the name up. I already know. I ain't gonna even try to pronounce the name. From New Orleans, but it's a boozy restaurant. I think it's on Canal Street. And they walk around and they offer you meat all day long. Lamb chops, steak, any bougie top tier meat. They got servers that dress in like these little weird costumes or whatever it's called, and they slice your meat and give you the meat. Top tier meat though. This is not just like chicken and this is top tier meat. You can go to like the middle part of the restaurant where it's like a salad bar and get your salad and then taste all the different meats. Okay, I'm at this restaurant. First time at this restaurant, y'all. I'm with some friends and this chick that I was messing with, right? We chilling, eating, waiting on, I think probably lamb chops or something. We having a good time. The vibes is immaculate. We drinking, vibing, eating, whatever like that. We in there for like probably, I'll say an hour. The restaurant packed. Keep in mind, the vibes is immaculate as far as everybody that's in there. Okay, an hour and a half for us being there. I kid you not, y'all. I turn my head, peeping the scenery out. I look at the door. It's full witches or vampires that walk through the door. It's finna get real. Hold on, I gotta sit up for this. Y'all, these girls walk through the door on some mean girl intro vibe, like that intro of Mean Girls when it's all slow motion and all 3-4 of them walking. I swear to God, this is how they came through the door, but they so cool, calm, and collected. All right, so I look at the door, I see them. I look back at the people I'm sitting with, and then I look around at everybody else in the restaurant, because the restaurant is a bougie restaurant. Like, this is where you get top tier meat at. It ain't cheap to go in that place. I'm looking at the attire, everybody. I'm kind of dripped down. They got on dresses. People got on heels. I look at them. They got on combat black boots, capes. I don't know why white people in New Orleans always want to wear capes. I shit you not though. If you ever been to New Orleans or you from New Orleans, you know the white vampire looking people like to wear them damn capes. These bitches had on capes, combat boots. Everybody got on nothing but black. Okay, that may be normal to some people. Like, I ain't think too much about it, right? Because maybe that's just they drip. Okay, they walked past me, like behind my back, to get to their table. Bro, when I tell you the energy that I felt from them females that walked past me, my whole body immediately got cold. I remember my body getting cold. I remember like the hairs on my neck and my arms stood up like as they walked past. I'm like, who the fuck is these? Sabrina the witch's ass motherfucking past me. Okay, they sit at their table. I'm not paying no mind. Like, okay, that was weird. Like, you can always feel the energy of somebody when they walk past you. I don't know about y'all, but I can, because I'm like super sensitive to energy. And I be peeping the scenery to everything. Whole time I might be a witch. Anyways, they walk past, I get the weird vibe. Bro, we in a restaurant. 2 minutes go by. The whole energy of the whole entire restaurant changed, y'all. I cannot make this up. I feel it change. The people that I'm with get quiet. Like the whole restaurant energy went down. Like they came in there and it just shifted the energy. But they not bothering nobody. Like they chilling with their capes and shit. We right here, right? And they table like right at where my other chat. I keep having to look back because I'm trying to piece together why the hell the vibes got messed up when they walked through. All of a sudden, nobody talking, nobody laughing, nobody joking. Everybody just like very like robotic, like still like. Not the plant just fell out of nowhere talking about the story. My plant just fell down just talking about the story. That's weird. But yeah, nobody. And then at this point, I'm realizing everybody stopped getting the meat. Like the service that was coming around asking you, hey, you want to try this, you want to try that. Everybody, y'all, I kid y'all, not everybody in the restaurant stopped getting meat. Like everybody started saying no. So at first I'm thinking like, oh, whatever they're offering probably is not something that they want. Like, okay. But then I'm dude come to me, he like lamb chops. Why did y'all turn down lamb chops? Anyways, time go by, they get their food, and I'm not even putting two and two together. I'm at an all. This is where I gotta clock it. I realize I'm at an all meat restaurant. Y'all, I cannot make this up, bro. I cannot make this up. I'm at an all meat restaurant. Everybody a lot of people, I'm gonna say a lot of people because I wasn't, but a lot of people who's getting the meat choices that the service is passing out, they meats is looking real raw. Now I like my shit medium well, but I don't like it. I don't like it raw. It's a lot of raw meat being served. I'ma just say. So I'm peeping at the witches. I just keep peeping because I can't. Like they just stealing the show, but they not doing nothing besides being booted up by the face. Like they just had very stale faces. Like they wasn't enjoying being there, but they was only there like 10 minutes. And it didn't dawn on me till way after that. This is an all meat restaurant. Everywhere I look, I'm seeing cows on the plate still mooing. Man, I really think that was vampires. The energy was cold, just like the other story time that I did. Like the energy as they walked past me was cold. Like the energy was cold, not like standoffish cold. I'm talking about the room got cold when they walked past. It was like some Blade slow motion movie scene type of shit. They got capes on. There's no reason for you to be dressed like that at a restaurant like this. All they makeup the same. Nobody smiling. They not talking to each other. It was like they was there to stand on business and eat their food, but it also gave like, now that I'm thinking about it, saying this shit out loud, it gave like a scene in Twilight or any vampire movie where they go out in public and they gotta eat, but they gotta act normal because they really won't tear up that food, but they gotta keep it calm, keep it cute because they're around humans. Oh my god, that my stomach hurt. Story time over, bro. That shit still give me chills to this day. New Orleans got some weird people in the city, man. This is definitely home of the vampires, voodoo witches.
Vampire, literally the only thing that we kept seeing on TV. So me and him was joking about it, and he was like, yeah, you know, this is the home of the vampires, blah, 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 blah. Well, he wasn't really saying it, but, you know, I knew what he was trying to say. So that night, this lady came in the room, the same lady that comes every night. And mind you, my boyfriend, his veins are really hard to find. Like, everybody that came to take his blood, like, would take 2 to 3 tries to get his blood. But every night this lady came, she got it on the first try. So this specific night, this is the day that we was watching vampire movies the whole day. Mind you, that's the only thing that was playing on TV, right? So this specific night, she comes in the room, and she has an accent. So she came in, she was like, I came to take your blood. She has like a Jamaican accent, foreigner accent, so, you know. So he was like, he said, okay, blah, blah, blah. He was like, I like your accent. Where are you from? And so I forgot what she said. She either said Jamaica or Honduras, something like that. And so he was like, okay. He was like, how do you like it from your home country? And she was like, I like it. It's death everywhere. So we kind of look at each other. We're like, okay, like, that was a little weird. Oh, boom, she takes the blood. Mind y'all, she does this in less than 30 seconds. Like, I kid you not. She stick it in there, got the blood, and was walking out. So my boyfriend, he made a comment. He was like, you get my blood so fast, you must be a vampire. Y'all, I kid you not. This lady turns around, mid-walk out the door. She turns around, looks us in our eyes, like, contact, and she says, yeah. Now, y'all probably like, nah, she probably just playing, like, nah. But you could tell the feeling, the feeling that filled the room was like, don't F with this girl. Like, don't ask her no more questions, because, yeah, something is definitely off. And, you know, usually somebody will be like, boy, stop playing. Like, I'm not no, you know what I'm saying? I'm not no vampire. Or they'll say something funny back. But she was so serious. Like, she was dead serious, y'all. Like, eye contact, facial expression, and walked straight out the door when she said yes. And I have more spooky story times just about things that I've experienced, because I'm a very spiritual person, and I feel spirits when they're around me, and I grew up, you know what I'm saying, seeing ghosts and do all that stuff. So if y'all want some more spooky stories, let me know, because your girl got it.
Real vampires have been popping off lately, and we have a story.
We do.
In New Orleans with vampires.
We go to New Orleans and we know we want to meet with these vampires, okay? We know we're going to meet with a specific vampire who is considered an elder. If you don't know, New Orleans is like the hottest spot in, well, definitely the country for vampires. We're like, we hear of this vampire bar, but we don't know how to get there. We go to these other places where we have heard through the grapevine that you can get information to get to this said bar. Okay, so
which wasn't easy either.
No,
they weren't just passing it. They weren't just giving out the password to just anybody to get into this bar.
No.
We had to work for it. And by we, I mean not me, it was Ben.
Yes. Then I do be hussing myself out.
Yeah.
So anyway, so we get to this one place that's like, he's like, oh, I can tell you where to go. So it's just a little shop. And he's like, well, go here. So we go to this place that's like vampire owned. And I say whatever he tells me to say. And they're like, oh, okay. But they check you out too. They're like, why do you want to go? So they want to make sure. And so I was like, oh, I'm just so interested. I'm working on a vampire documentary, which is true. So
Facts.
So then they give me a little thing that has the passcode on it. And we're so excited. We go home and we get all like
vamped up.
We're ready to go. We're like, we're going to go hang out.
I'll put a picture of us because we look fucking hot.
We did look cute.
There we are. Like, look at us.
We look
cute. Chef's kiss.
We're ready to go. We had no idea what was in store.
We didn't.
The crazy part about this is that it gives you just an address and the password. We get to this address and it doesn't look like a speakeasy or a bar or anything. It looks like it's a jazz club and it's packed because it's New Orleans.
Yeah.
And so we're like, okay, I guess it just says go to the back until you find the vampire. You have to go through all these people who are just like having a great time listening to their jazz. Get to the back and it gets darker and darker and darker. All of a sudden we see this like candelabra and this man looked like a vampire.
He looked like a straight up vampire.
I mean, he was cute. I thought he was cute.
If you're into men, maybe.
Which we're not. But like, he had these contacts in, the fangs, the whole 9 yards. Like,
the whole 9 yards.
We said to him the password, which I'm not going to say here, but we said it, and he just stared at me, like freaked me out, and was like, what do you want to go there for? You know, again, and I was like, oh, I want to see some vampires. He's like, okay, we pay whatever. We get the little stampy poo. He opens this door that looks like it's just gonna fucking go out into like nowhere, the street. But actually, you open it up and you go up these fucking stairs. It's dark. It's weird. We have no idea what we're doing.
There was a cat.
There was a cat. It smelled like cat piss.
It did.
It was odd. And then we get up there and there is this whole like balcony kind of like rooftop bar. Secret bar. How did it feel in there? It's fucking wild.
What I could say that how it felt was almost like a lack of energy in there.
Yeah.
Like it almost felt dead inside.
And it was pretty crowded. Like
yeah.
It got more and more crowded as the night went on. We're meeting this elder vampire, right? That's who we know we're meeting. And we go out onto the balcony and we start talking with him. And immediately I'm like, I don't know about this guy. Like he feels kind of shady, you know? He kind of gave us all the like, not so sure.
I don't know how I feel about this dude.
I right off the bat did not like him. Like I had a weird feeling about him.
And I just didn't care, to be honest. I met him, I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna go get drinks. So I was inside while you had this whole conversation with him where he fed on people who are right in the street in front of you.
Yes. We're out on the balcony now, and you know, like if you've been to New Orleans, you know, like there's all those balconies where you can like look down and you can see tons and tons of people walking beneath you.
Yeah,
and
French Quarter.
Yeah, exactly. We're in the French Quarter. So he's basically telling me from the gate that being a vampire, like one of the main things is consent, right? And so I'm like, oh, that's good. At least I don't love his vibe, but at least he's
cares about consent.
Yeah.
Which is so important and vital and should be vital to everyone and to real vampires, but
because they're feeding on you.
But it's not important to all real vampires because real vampires are also just people who can be good, bad, or somewhere in between.
Yes, and he was definitely somewhere in between. If I were to say, because a lot of time passed, right? Like I got into a very existential conversation with him because all the vampires I have met are super into past lives. And so I felt like I knew him and vice versa, but I don't think I liked him in the past life. You know, I didn't feel like a real fun situation. Anyway, so more drinks had been had and finally I guess he felt like loose enough or whatever because he went completely back on his whole consent shit and we're looking down and he starts feeding on specific people in the crowd below, like singling them out. Because in the vampire community, there is this concept of ambient feeding, which is feeding off of a crowd, which is usually pretty safe. You're just taking the top energy off of like a big crowd. So it doesn't really drain anyone.
Right.
But he actively said he was singling people out and focusing his energy on them. And what was wild is that I watched him do it and he would tell me like, okay, that one. And their literal demeanor, the way that they were walking, like their pace all changed when he would focus on them.
Yeah.
They would start to like almost look like disoriented. And I even like confronted him and I was like, I thought you were about consent. And then he just kind of gave me this smirk that was like, well, and I was like, oh, is that how it is? Like it's consensual until you have a few drinks and then it's not?
Fen is out there having this conversation with this elder real vampire who is unconsensually feeding on people in the French Quarter. I was inside having drinks as one does with my best friend Danelle. We saw this blue-haired girl who we were told is a part of a LARPing group, and we thought, that's fun, that's cool, we like nerdy shit, let's go talk to her, she looks cool. If you've seen What We Do in the Shadows, she is Colin Robinson. Mm-hmm. I have never experienced boredom like that in my lifetime. Because, okay, we go talk to her, she starts talking to us about the public policy of her LARPing group. Public policy of a LARPing group. I'm like, I thought you were going to tell us some interesting shit. I don't know if she knows that she's a vampire, but she was actively, I was like, when will this be over? So Fen comes in after all of this, after Fen's witnessed this elder vampire feeding on others, comes in, sees Danelle and I, sits down for, I don't know, 15 seconds, says out loud, I just got fed on by another vampire. I'm not about to get fed on by this one. And I'm leaving. And just gets up, no help to Danelle and I. Thanks, Fen.
It was a tactic to get you out of there.
It wasn't.
It was. It just didn't work that well.
Liar.
I'm not lying.
Fen was like, this is crazy.
I was like, this is crazy. Which, by the way, I was fed on by the elder vampire.
Right.
Yes. And yeah, that's a whole fucking thing. And so I was drained to shit. It sucks. If you've ever been fed on by a vampire, you fucking know. I mean, obviously you guys we were so drained afterward, all of us.
Yes, we were like, get us out of this situation. So anyways, I say when Fen's like, I'm leaving, I'm like, well, where are you going? And Fen's like, I'm going to a different bar. And then we're like, okay, well, we have to come with you. Like, sorry, we're coming with you. Danelle and I go to leave, and this blue-haired girl who has been talking about public policy of her LARPing group for at least 10 minutes.
At least.
She
held you fucking hostage.
Literally says, well, I guess I just won't finish my story.
No,
yeah, I guess you fucking won't.
Because
I'm sorry.
I would be 100 years old by the time it was done.
Literally. I think I got like 3 gray hairs within that conversation. We're gonna go to this other bar.
And keep in mind, we're all so depleted because not only were we in a vampire bar that was intrinsically depleting because there were so many vampires per square fucking foot, but also because we were directly fed on by blue-haired girl, an elder vampire, and blue-haired girl's friend. There was like a friend
No,
too.
that friend was great. I don't know if they realized that they were also getting fed on by their blue-haired Colin Robinson friend, but fuck. So we're walking to the bar with this elder vampire, and he is droning on and on about history that I could not give a fuck about. I like history, especially New Orleans history.
Yeah.
For you to make that boring,
yeah,
that's talent. That's talent, sir.
And we were hungry because when you're fed on by a vampire, which I have been
very hungry.
Yes, we got so hungry. When you are fed on by vampires, you get really hungry, and also when you're drunk, you get hungry. So it was like
double hungry.
So elder vampire is just like droning on, and Megan goes. She just yells. She's got her like arm in mine, and she's just like, nobody cares.
And then I said, I want a hot dog! Nothing is better than one of those cart hot dogs when you've been drinking.
So I went on a journey to find us hot dogs. We did, in fact, find hot dogs.
Yeah.
I was very proud of myself. And so now we just always think of New Orleans and the hot dogs and the fucking vampires. And my advice is like, be fucking careful when you're around vampires.
And be careful if you live in New Orleans and you're walking through the French Quarter.
Seriously.
Literally. And just in general, protect your energy. Be aware of your energy. Be aware of your space. There could be a vampire up on the balcony, an elder vampire just sucking you dry. And not in a good way.
God. We go to New Orleans and we know we want to meet with these vampires.
What's up, guys? I'm Frick.
And I'm Abry.
And we are real-life psychic vampires.
I happen to live in New Orleans.
And I live in Atlanta.
And today we are going to be psychic vampires who have opinions.
As members of the New Blood team, we felt that it was important to express those opinions.
Here we are having a reaction video just for you.
We know we're going to meet with a specific vampire who is considered an elder.
Elder vampires, let's talk about that.
Elder vampires are something that's been around in the community for a long time, basically since the inception of the vampire community.
All an elder vampire is just somebody who's been in the community for a while. In some vampire houses and in some like vampire groups, that's a position within the group, honor to the oldest of them. And sometimes they get inflated with too much idea of like power, which it's not that big of a deal being an elder vampire. I think it's like an honorary, if anything.
How spicy do you want to get?
Let's get actually spicy.
It is an outdated term for a position that most considered of power. While I don't think it particularly means anything anymore, it has meant and still in some cases means quite a lot to a lot of people.
It does. It's very pervasive, I think, in some corners of the vampire community. I know for me, for instance, that's like saying that you like cellophane. Like it does not have any sort of real impact to me whatsoever. It has nothing really to do other than like, oh, so you've been in since like, the early 90s.
I also hear if somebody introduces themselves as an elder in the community or an elder vampire, that automatically tells me that there's someone that I need to keep an eye on, because depending upon what their beliefs may or may not be as I get to know them, if they attempt to close the fist of that power dynamic, then I am not going to put myself in that situation because I don't uphold it.
No, I would agree with that. It also depends on like how somebody who is part of the greater vampire community introduces themselves, because if they're like, hello, I'm Jim Bob the vampire, and like later in that conversation they're like, I've been part of the vampire community since like the early 90s, I guess you can call me an elder vampire, that I think is an okay way to present it. But if
That's
they like,
fine.
if they come in with their like big swooping ego and are all like, I'm an elder vampire fangatus, I'm like, okay.
Yes, that's the introduction I was thinking of. I was thinking of the I am an elder.
Right.
I
Like,
am Elder Zenthar.
I now
No.
take you 0% seriously and understand that you are fully ego forward and may or may not have issues with your ego.
They weren't just passing it, they weren't just giving out the password to just anybody to get into this bar.
Why is it so difficult to get entry into vampire spaces like that? Well, Abby and I recently were actually downtown in New Orleans, and we're at the place where you get that information. One of the things that we were talking to the person who gave it to us about is that there's actually been a flood of people from TikTok and the internet having seen things like the vampire speakeasy online, and not everybody was there with the most respect, so they kind of locked it down a little bit more than they already had been.
I would say that this is not the only instance of there being a lockdown of information. This really started in the vampire community all the way back in the 90s during the Satanic Panic. Secret spaces and like very kind of like exclusive spaces were necessary to protect the community because of what occurred in the 90s especially.
There's been a lot of discrimination against folks who identify as any type of vampire to an extent, and safety has always been of the utmost concern for a majority of the vampire community.
And it's not just vampire community. Occult practitioners faced this during the Satanic Panic. People who were interested in witchcraft, vampires. Basically, if you were black, you were a target. And what ended up happening is a lot of the vampire-specific groups went very underground. And it was a who do you know to get in situation. There would be some bars that ended up being kind of like refuge points. So you get a lot of club culture within the greater vampire community because then it was, you have to know what bar to go to. And then they were kind of in plain sight presenting at that point even.
Because it had to be. That was how you kept people safe and not targeted.
It's also a lingering like through beat throughout, I think, the VC. And I think it's something that I would actually like to see changed as we like move forward. Or if there's a place that I would like to change, it would be to strip away this like innate culture of fear that's like steeped in the vampire community because of it.
What I could say that how it felt was almost like a lack of energy in there.
So let's talk about why you might think the energy is low or dead in a vampire hangout.
It's oftentimes not considered that people who are incredibly sensitive to energy, like psychic vampires, are actually very sensitive to energy in all its forms. So one of the best ways that an energy vampire would find a place comfortable is a very low and chill sort of energy.
Yeah, and speaking as somebody who is a psychic vampire, that lack of psychic stimulation is relaxing. That is a comfortable place to be in. And if you're talking about a place like a vampire speakeasy, where it's a predominantly mostly individuals who either identify as vampire or are there to talk to vampires, that kind of gentle, low, comfortable space is meant to be conducive for like relaxed conversation. If you want to go to like a club or a party, like go find a rave. Like these spaces are meant to be intellectual spaces and conversational spaces and exchanging like exchanging philosophies upon life and just hanging out with your friends who also happen to be vamps and not getting bombarded by everybody else's energy and emotions.
That kind of area is intended to be comfortable, and you're not going to find somebody comfortable if they're just constantly agitated by everything going on around them.
Psychic vampires often walk around with a lot of shielding already to try and like filter out or mitigate, especially when they're super sensitive. Many psychic vampires specifically are sensitive. They want to negate a lot of that extra noise, and the best place to do that are in spaces that are created and forged to be safe havens, which means if you're looking for a party, maybe go elsewhere, but if you're looking for a good conversation and a chill vibe, vampire speakeasies are a really good place to do it.
Let's go into the specific types of vampires in New Orleans and a brief description of each for your benefit, since you're so curious. We're going to start out with one of the more popular types of vampires, and they're called sanguine vampires. So what is a sanguine vampire? Most sanguine vamps refer to themselves as sangs, and there are different types of sang vampires, but the thing that unites all of them is that they imbibe heart wine, if you catch my drift. Individuals who identify in this way are very on top of health and safety. They're very secure about their practices. They test often, and they have a lot of respect and a lot of trust with their donors. The second type of vampire is my type of vampire, and that is called a psychic vampire. Psychic vampires are interesting because they require vital life energy to survive. They also have the worst reputation because psychic vampirism and what psychology refers to as an emotional vampire often get conflated. But it's because that when there are high emotions, there's lots of energy, and psychic vampires can numb that energy. But ethical psychic vampirism, which is what I teach and what I practice, is consent-based. I have to ask your permission before I nom on you, specifically. And psychic vampires can feed in many other ways, such as ambient feeding, so sort of collecting the free energy that's in a crowd or just kind of floating off of somebody, energy that they don't need anymore and technically doesn't have an owner, so why not eat it? The third type of vampire is very similar to a psychic vampire, but they have a very particular stipulation, and that is what I consider a carnalis vampire. So what is a carnalis vampire? All carnalis vampires function under a need for sultry energy. Yes, they're very adult kind of fun, if you catch my drift, and that is almost exclusively how they feed within the act of said playtime. The fourth type of vampire you may encounter is what I would consider a kultas vampire. What the hell does that mean? Kultas vampires all have one important thing in common. They themselves do not have a direct need, but because of their spiritual practice, they have developed a need for energy of some sort, or they function with a vampiric deity that they now have to acquire energy for. Kultas vampires are also sometimes hard to kind of sort out because they don't innately have that need to feed. So it's kind of like a switch they turn on and off. It's based purely on their practice and what they're doing in their practice. Your mileage may vary with trying to like pin down if somebody's a kultas vampire because it's an opt-in situation. And the fifth type of vampire, yes, the most common type of vampire, is what I call an archetypal vampire. What does that mean? Well, an archetypal vampire is somebody who identifies with the archetype of a vampire. It is a very broad spectrum of individuals, from people who use the image of the vampire as a self-empowerment tool. It can also be folks who just kind of enjoy LARPing and including that more and more into their daily life. It can also mean someone who just likes to dress up and go to clubs as a vampire. It could mean somebody who likes to role play that in the bedroom. It is a very broad group, and the thing that unites all of them are there is no energy exchange that's happening at all. There is no vampiric need, there is no vampiric source, there is no deity, there's none of that. It is just purely aesthetic. Now here's a little bit of a curveball, because you know, we have to make it slightly more complicated than it even needed to be. Psychics, Sangs, Kultas, and Carnalis can also be archetypal. And it's only complicated because while we may like the aesthetic of a vampire, we actually have the bits, the actual bits. Just because you enjoy the aesthetic doesn't necessarily mean that that means you're not any of the others. So to be fair, you can have psychic vampires who also practice Sang practices that are also archetypal and who from time to time indulge in carnalis play. The thing that unites all vampirism outside of archetypal is the method of feeding. How are they getting their sustenance? How are they getting their energy, etc.? So if you come to New Orleans and you're trying to figure out what type of vampires are walking around on the streets, know that sometimes you will never ever know that was a vampire, period. You won't. And if you happen to run across somebody who you think might be an archetypal vampire, play your cards careful because they might actually be also a vampire. Myself included. So I hope that answers some questions and sates your curiosity. And I'm always here if you want to know more. Just saying.
Let's talk about the history of vampires. Now, I'm sure we all know what vampires are, and we've seen it on every TV show and movie in history. But a lot of people believe that the origin of vampire folklore originated from Eastern Europe in the late 17th century and the 18th century. And these tales entered the vampire legends that later entered Germany and England, where they were embellished and popularized. So vampire legends has been around for literally centuries. And the word vampires has its roots in the Mediterranean languages. Vam meaning blood, and pyre meaning monster. But there are also many different characteristics of vampires as they are vampire legends. Now, we've watched 1,000 vampire movies and shows, and on every movie and show, they all have differences. Like, some vampires might not have fangs on some shows. Some might can turn into a bat. Now, they're all different in every show because it's a show. And with that being said, I just feel like when they talk about stuff on movies and shows, especially something so popular for years, they couldn't have just made this up, y'all. They had to have gotten the idea from somewhere. Like, who just thought, vampires, that'll be a good character on a show? No, they had to have gotten the idea from somewhere. But I know a lot of y'all are like, where did the myth even come from? Because like many myths, it's based properly in fact. And a lot of people believe that the myth came from a lot of the noble people and royalty of Europe, from a disorder called porphyria. And it's basically an inherited blood disorder that causes the body to produce less heme. This is a critical component in hemoglobin. So in the origin of the vampire myth, porphyria is sometimes referred to as the vampire disease because some of the symptoms is sensitivity to the sun, leading to different facial disfigurements, fangs, like the disease causing the gums to recede and I guess making the teeth appear as fangs, blood drinking, because the urine of the person that has this disease is dark red and folklore people believe that they was drinking blood and that's why their urine was so dark. Some of the symptoms was even not being able to see a reflection in the mirror and also fear of a crucifix as well. Because during the Spanish Inquisition, 600 vampires were reportedly burnt at the stake. And some of these accused vampires was like innocent people that was suffering from this disease porphyria. So that was their reason of the fear of the crucifix. But this is supposedly the history of vampires now. Vampires have been around for centuries and not just in any of the European areas. There has been many spotted in New Orleans, LA, all different parts of the world. It has been around for centuries. And there's actually some very popular people that people believe are vampires in history or are still vampires to this day. And there's a lot of people that have been accused of being a vampire in New Orleans as well. And I'll make a separate video on that. But let me know if y'all want to hear more about the history and the people that have been accused of vampires.
Y'all, I just got done watching, like for the third time, that new movie, Sinners. And I just want to say real quick, y'all, vampires, and it made me think about my own life. Vampires are real. And I ain't talking about the blood-sucking vampires, y'all. We encounter vampires every day of our life, and if we don't be careful, they will suck the life out you. I had to remember, it brought me back to the time I was with an abusive situation. This man was literally sucking the life out of me, y'all. I was losing weight, I was sick, skin was breaking out, just had me to the point, y'all, that I was ready to end my life to get rid of this person because he was sucking so much life out of me. And when after, y'all, and I was in this relationship for 12 years. So you can imagine. So a lot of people judge the way I act now. I'm free. My energy is free. My level is free. My everything is free. So be careful, y'all. It could be a man, your mama, your friend, your cousin, your grandma, of vampires that's around you every day, your children, everybody that's literally sucking the life out of you. Be careful of your energy and who's around you, and just be careful, y'all. Get them vampires out your life. You'll feel better.
Do you know why New Orleans is known for vampires? A lot of folks know New Orleans for vampires because of Anne Rice's novel series, but there's more to it than that. Have you ever heard the story of the Casket Girls of New Orleans? The Casket Girls were some girls. They were ladies from elsewhere. The Casket Girls were a group of women who came over to New Orleans in 1728, and they did so at the behest of the King of France to help boost the population of New Orleans. Now, New Orleans at that time was a budding colony, and there were lots of men there, but there weren't many women of good quality and high standards. So the casket girls were brought over on boat, and when they arrived, they filed out carrying caskets. Now, we think of this word, casket, but really it is the French word casket.
Editor Avery here. I had to look it all up again just to make sure I got the words right. Casket means cap. It means cap because they wore caps. They covered their heads.
And that's basically just luggage. So you could call them the luggage girls, but it doesn't have quite the same spooky ring. The casket girls come over, and the first thing that the gentlemen of New Orleans say is, "My gosh, they're so pale." And they were almost ashen, very pale of skin, had very bright red, very pink lips. That was very strange, but they were women, and they hadn't been around many women in a while, so why judge? The casket girls were then brought into the Ursuline convent in New Orleans, and they were to stay there until their marriages could be arranged with several gentlemen in the area. One of the things of note about these women as they were in New Orleans at the convent was they rapidly blistered and burned in the sunshine. So much so that they stayed under the shade trees or kept all of their bodies covered just because the heat of subtropical New Orleans was just too much for their delicate, pale skin. As somebody who is delicate and pale, I can attest that you burn rapidly here, but that's besides the point. As these women were arranged into different marriages and sent off, usually the gentleman would find oddities with each of these casket women. And as they were around them more and more, they found that they were morose and unhappy. They just weren't quite right. Rumors started to spread that most of these women were off, odd, weird, something was wrong, and the men started speaking about it. Now, some of the women were turned out to fend for themselves, and this resulted in a really hard life for them. Some of them went back to the Ursuline convent. They didn't know really what to do with them. When the French king heard about how some of these women were being mistreated by their husbands, or turned out, as it were, he said enough was enough. He wanted them to come back home. So the Ursuline nuns decided to gather up the ladies, and their caskets, their luggage, had been stored at the top floor of the convent, on the 3rd floor. The windows and doors of this area of the convent had always been closed and shut. All of their belongings were inside of this basically attic-like space and sealed away until such time as they were ready to go back to France. When the ship had arrived to take the casket girls and their belongings home, the Ursuline nuns went up to the 3rd floor to collect all of their luggage and bibs and bobs to send home, and everything was gone. The caskets were empty. All of their belongings had vanished, and so did some of the casket girls too. And that's when the convent nuns decided maybe there was some merit to the rumor that some of these casket girls were vampires. And the rumor that these ladies were vampires spread throughout the French Quarter and New Orleans and right into history. Here's another little tidbit about the casket girls, though. Back in 1978, there were 2 paranormal investigators that had been previously kicked off of the convent property. And the Ursuline convent nuns were like, nah, get your happy ass over there and stay over there. Not here. None of this shit. The 2 paranormal investigators camped on the sidewalk in front of the convent to try and track down if the casket girls were vampires and did they come in and out of the 3rd floor. They had their cameras targeted up there, and they, went about their evening. And as anybody knows, paranormal investigating is real boring until it's not. So these gents were sitting there having themselves a good chit chat and talking when the 3rd floor shutters on the windows began to open and close. Now, these 3rd floor shutters are interesting because they were nailed shut with blessed nails directly from the Pope himself. There shouldn't have been any spooky movement, and yet there was. The 2 gentlemen didn't notice until after the fact, which made it all the more delicious because they probably missed the very vampires who were opening and closing those doors, entering and exiting the 3rd floor of the Ursuline convent in the French Quarter. The next morning, the bodies of the investigators were found. They didn't survive whatever was happening behind them on the 3rd floor of the Ursuline convent, but their video recordings did. And those investigators' bodies were torn open like a delicious chicken, uncooked, on the sidewalk. And there was no blood. So was it vampires? But there's more to this story, because there always is. Here's the other side of it. Ready? So the casket girls are real. That happened.
King of France sent some women over to help bolster the community here. Make a family. And they did. What really happened was the ladies came off the boat and they did find marriages, and they were not too happy with the local gents because they would go out into the woods, they would go do work, and they wouldn't do things like homesteading. So helping maintain a garden or even like build a house and put a roof over it. These ladies ended up doing something called the Petticoat Rebellion in order to say, I ain't gonna put out if you don't put in towards the home. A lot of folks that can trace their lineage back to casket girls are actually quite proud of it, because not only were they upstanding ladies, good and wholesome, sent by the King of France, but they were badasses who were like, you do what you gotta do, sir, and then we can do what we gotta do. Got it? So that's the story of the casket girls. Fascinating, isn't it?
Alright, so a story was sent to me by one of the followers on my YouTube channel. It says, hey Jenny, I love your channel and your spooky story time. Hey girl, hey, thank you. But I never imagined I'd be sending you one of my own. I've been debating whether or not I should even share this story. But after what happened to me in New Orleans, I can't keep it to myself anymore. Maybe someone else out there needs to hear this. Maybe it'll be a warning. Okay, so let's see. This happened last year when my family and I took a quick trip to New Orleans for the Mardi Gras weekend. I found a charming Airbnb just outside of the French Quarters. It looked like one of those old Creole townhomes. Real vintage with those beautiful wrought iron balconies. It felt alive, but not in a good way. More like the house has a pulse of its own. We arrived on Thursday night. My daughter, who's 9, kept saying she had a bad feeling about this house. She kept looking towards the house next door, saying the man on the second floor window keeps staring at her. We brushed it off. Kids say things, especially when they're spooked by unfamiliar surroundings. The next morning, she refused to go near the outside of the house facing the neighbors. I asked her what happened, what was going on. She said, he doesn't blink. I laughed it off at times, and I laughed it off at that time, but I really wish I hadn't. But Friday night is when everything changed. My husband had taken our youngest daughter for a walk to get some beignets, and I think those are the cakes with the babies inside that you have to cut and find the baby. But anyways, while I stayed back with our other daughter, around 10 p.m., she was darting quickly by the windows when she suddenly gasped and whispered, Mommy, he's hurting someone. I rushed to her and looked where she was pointing. Through a narrow crack in the curtains of the neighbor's window, I saw a man hunched over another man in a chair, almost motionless. It looked like he was kissing his neck at first, but when the light hit just right, there was blood. I saw it running down the side of the chair. The man in the chair looked pale, like ash, and his mouth was hanging open like it couldn't scream, even if he tried. But the weirdest thing, the man doing the biting looked calm, elegant, even like he was savoring a glass of wine. I wanted to call the police. I really did. But my phone was dead, and when I tried the landline, it made this sound of staticky sound before disconnecting. I was froze in place, trembling, trying to make sense of what I just saw. My daughter whispered, "He saw us." I turned back towards the window. His eyes were locked right on ours. The curtain shifted, and then nothing, just darkness. The next day, the man in the chair, he was walking, alive, but he looked changed. He was gaunt, pale, and avoiding all sunlight. He passes us in the courtyard and smiled at my daughter. His eyes were sunken and dead. And she squeezed my hand so tight I thought should break it. She whispered, he's one of them now. Since that night, we've been hearing things. Back home, scratching at the windows, whispers outside our door. Our daughter wakes up with mysterious bruises on her neck, small and round, like something tried but didn't finish. We burned sage, we called a priest, we even tried moving homes, but somehow they still find us. Oof. Jenny, if you share this, please tell your followers to be careful with where they stay in New Orleans. Some of those houses have history, blood history. The neighbor, he wasn't just a man, he was a predator. And now I think we're being hunted. Oh, shh. All right, well, thank you, girl, for sending me the story. It sounds crazy. I hope you and your family are safe and everything is okay. If you're watching the story, I hope you enjoyed. I hope I did not destroy the story. I hope I tell exactly how you wanted me to tell the story. Anyways, y'all, vampires in New Orleans are real, but vampires are not like the vampires that you think they are. I actually have this book about vampire, like learning about vampires and stuff like that, and it's a very interesting book. But vampires, it doesn't seem like vampires are what people make it seem like they are, you know. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think about the video, and if you have your own stories, don't forget to share them through my email and or in the comment section, and I will read it and tag you to the video once I make the video and your story make the cut. So anyways, I'll talk to y'all later. Bye. Love you.
Infamous story about how this lady claims, and she's a bartender, that the Carter brothers came into her bar. And the Carter brothers are infamous. Everybody has a story about them. They were these brothers in the 1930s in New Orleans. They were rumored to be vampires after allegedly abducting and draining the blood of their victim. A lot of people think if there are like weird things happening around town that are like supernatural and unexplained, it could be linked to one of the Carter brothers. Another famous example is Count Saint Germain, and people know of him as the man who does not die and knows everything. And everybody's had sightings of him. People have claimed to have been seeing him since the 18th century. And he just like changes identities as time goes on so people don't, you know, figure out he's immortal. There are thousands of stories just like this. New Orleans is a bit of a paranormal hotspot. And if you're a local or a visitor, it seems like everybody ends up having some sort of story. And if you like my spooky content, come over here for longer.
I'm gonna tell you all a few things that you may have not known before about vampires. Vampires actually do exist, and I know this sounds very far-fetched and I'm losing people as we speak, but if you're here still, just hold on, let me explain. Vampires are not what you think they are, like in fiction novels and stuff like that. There are two different types of vampires that I have studied, because honestly I've never personally been close to one of these people, but when you do occult research and you research into folklore, specifically Eastern European folklore and Egyptian folklore, you will come into beliefs around vampires, because vampires were actually started in ancient Egypt. And you also have some history with vampires in Eastern Europe. Now, present day, we've had encounters in the United States with...
Hey guys, I'm Jenny, and this is Shameless Plug. So I want to tell you guys about my Crown of Success manifestation book with easy, simple rituals and spells to manifest a life of abundance in your life. And those spells are so easy, even a child can do it. So this book is filled with different spells that I've learned over the years from my family, passed down from grandma and everything. And also those are spells that I've actually tried and I know that they work. So this book not only teach you step by step on the things that you can do that are so easy that a child can do it, but it tells you like the proper moon phase to use, alchemy, manifesting with numbers, numerology, and also the days of the week that best fit for this particular spell. So it tells you the timing of when to practice the spell, the days of the week, the moon phase. It shows you all the colors of the candles that you should be using and different planets. So for example, I show you like planet Jupiter is for Thursdays and the hours of the days that you should be doing the spell. So this is an easy road opener spell. So I know a lot of people like to do like different spell work, but if your roads are blocked of course your spells are not going to work. So it's good to unblock yourself first and then start using the spell, especially with the new years and the new days to come. And also I have some amazing spells in here. This is a powerful quick money spell, so if you're in a bind for some money and you're just trying to get some money. And I even have some easy powerful spell to win game of chance. So if you are a gambler, now I don't promote gambling, but if you are a gambler and you're just trying to make some money and trying to make sure you win, these spells will definitely help you. It tells you the best days to do it. So it says the best days to perform this spell is on a Thursday, Jupiter day. Jupiter is the planet of good fortune, luck, and expansion. Jupiter is the best day to perform spells that boost luck and increase your chance of success in any game of chance or any money spell, period. It has a list of so many spells that you can incorporate in your life with this new year to bring prosperity. And I even put some bonus spells on here, which for Saturday is a day to do like protection work. So I have a spell for like send back to senders. So I put some bonus spells on here, and then a protection with Archangel Michael. So there's so many spells on here. Removing the evil eye spell, so you can remove evil eye in your money and also in your everyday life. New Year home blessing spell, and I know it's been a few days since the new year started, but you can always do a home blessing spell any days of the week. As long as you need it, you could do it. So anyways, guys, this is my book. It's called Crown of Success by Jenny, and it's available on Amazon, the ebook and also the physical copy. So please grab a copy if you're interested in supporting this channel. This is a way to support the channel and to support me as well for putting out, content every day for you guys. So enjoy. So I hope you guys enjoyed this book, and I hope you go and grab your copy, whether it's the ebook or the physical copy. I say have a physical copy, but it's really up to how much, your wallet and what you can afford. So anyways, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye. Mwah.